The White House just announced a sweeping wave of new tariffs on Chinese goods.
Thanks. So, if you look at that, China, first row.
Electric vehicles, semiconductors, solar panels, industrial machinery. The message? Cut dependence, hit back hard, show dominance.
I'm not going to say, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice.
But Beijing hasn't responded publicly. No threats, no fiery speeches, just silence. And that silence is unsettling. However, Victor Gao, an expert on China relations, has expressed himself on this.
Free trade is something that China wants to defend at any cost. And if Washington keeps bluffing, keeps intimidating, keeps holding a gun at China's head, China will have no other choice.
Behind closed doors, Chinese officials are preparing a response. Not loud, but precise. Restrict rare earth exports, quietly delay licenses for U.S. tech firms operating in Shanghai, leverage economic influence in Africa and Southeast Asia to weaken American access to resources. They won't say it out loud. They'll let the markets feel it first. Wall Street is already nervous. The dollar is climbing on fear. Tech stocks are rattling. Supply chains are tightening again. The real cost of this war won't be tariffs. It'll be everything we don't see coming.
I think it's going to be a lot of pressure on consumer psychology, on business sentiment, on what the Federal Reserve Board decides to do or not do, and all those things mean recession risks are on the rise.
While the world debates tariffs and exchanges tweets, China quietly wields economic tools the West seldom acknowledges, measures that could send shockwaves through the global economy if ever deployed. First, consider U.S. debt. China holds over $700 billion in treasury bonds. These are not merely investments, they represent significant leverage. Should China begin selling them, either gradually or all at once, U.S. interest rates could surge, the dollar could weaken, and financial markets might plunge into turmoil. This would constitute economic warfare without a single shot fired. Next is the yuan, China's tightly controlled currency. With a subtle adjustment, Beijing could devalue it, rendering Chinese goods cheaper on the global market and making American products less competitive. This would be a quiet yet potent blow to international trade.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi went on state-run TV and said Beijing will counterattack if the U.S. continues to engage in, quote, blackmail over tariffs.
Now imagine it. One quiet morning, markets open and something feels off. Treasury bond yields spike. The yuan falls. A new Chinese law restricts rare earth exports. And suddenly, headlines read, U.S. tech firms in shock. It would feel like a financial earthquake, not loud but deep. Interest rates would rise almost instantly, making mortgages, credit cards, and loans more expensive. Stocks would tumble. The ripple would travel fast, from Wall Street to Main Street. Consumers would feel it in the price of cars, phones, laptops, even food, all because a few key pressure points were hit by design. And the supply chain? Fragile. We've seen what delays can do during pandemics, storms, and strikes, but this would be deliberate, coordinated. American factories depending on Chinese parts could shut down. Jobs would vanish, inflation would spiral. For decades, the world has trusted in the dollar. That trust could evaporate faster than anyone expects. It wouldn't look like a war. No explosions, no troops, just markets collapsing, prices rising, fear spreading, and it seems no one able to stop it. Could China truly bring down the world's largest economy? On paper, it sounds impossible, but let's go deeper. Yes, China has more control over its financial system than most nations ever will. A single move from its central bank could cause panic in US markets and yet barely ripple back home. Rare earths are replaceable eventually, but eventually doesn't help when defense contractors and tech giants need materials today. A sudden ban would cause chaos now, and now is where the US economy lives. And then there's the psychological game. Uncertainty, doubt, fear. China doesn't have to destroy the US economy, just shake the foundations. Undermine trust in the dollar, create political division, disrupt supply chains just enough to cause panic. In economics, perception is power. The yuan is no longer just a domestic currency, it's a strategic weapon. China is using it to challenge the dollar's global supremacy, step by step. Through trade agreements, digital currency trials, and massive investments tied to the Belt and Road Initiative, Beijing is quietly convincing its partners to accept and trust the yuan. Energy deals once priced only in dollars are now being settled in yuan. Central banks in developing nations are slowly adding it to their reserves. Russia, Iran, Brazil, countries seeking alternatives to US influence, are turning eastward. Unlike the dollar, the yuan isn't fully convertible. China controls its capital flow, but that's not a weakness, it's part of the plan. By keeping control, Beijing ensures that the yuan's rise happens on its terms, not the market's. Every deal, every digital yuan transaction, every new bilateral agreement, it's not just trade. It's a signal, a shift. The world isn't abandoning the dollar, not yet. But the yuan is no longer in its shadow. It's walking quietly beside it, waiting for the moment to move ahead.
That has not been working recently, and the reason it doesn't work, Larry, you would know better than I would, is that they don't have a Marxist-Leninist system. They don't have a market system. They have a market-Leninist system. So they have tried to use certain elements of the market, but it's directed by the regime.
Right.
And when you get a disruption like tariffs, it presents huge problems. And this is not a regime that can turn on a dime. So they've got serious problems here.
The US and China are locked in a silent war. A war with no missiles, no tanks, no sirens, just numbers, currencies, contracts, and secrets. The US has unmatched financial strength. The dollar rules the world. Its tech giants shape the future, but China plays a longer game. It builds quietly, railways, ports, digital currencies, trade networks, in places most Americans have never heard of. China doesn't want to win a trade war. It wants to build a new system, one where it sets the rules, one where dependence flows the other way. And it's already begun, from Africa to Latin America, from Asia to the Middle East. So who really holds the power? The country with the most money, or the one that controls the flow of resources? The nation with the loudest voice, or the one that controls the silence? This isn't about who collapses first. It's about who shapes what comes after. A new order is forming, and it may not look like anything we've seen before. So can China crash the US economy? Not with one move, but with pressure, patience, and precision, maybe. Maybe not today. But the seeds have already been planted. And when the storm hits, it won't come from where we expect.